My name is Katie Thomas. I'm the marketing manager for the School of Data Science. I would like to welcome you all to the fourth annual Women in Data Science Charlotte Conference, hosted and sponsored by the School of Data Science and Lowe's Incorporated. The WID Charlotte Conference initiative aims to support and educate data science across the region, regardless of gender, and to support women in the field of data science and STEM. With the current state of the world mainly interacting online, we are grateful for your decision to attend our two-day virtual event and to show your support for our various speakers from across the region. I'd like to extend a special thanks to all of our attendees for showing up and showing your support. I'm happy to introduce our panel session for the hour, the importance of data fluency in the business world. Our speakers for this morning are leaders from across SIA Partners, a next generation consulting firm. Please join me in welcoming Relly Luo, a senior management consultant for SIA Partners and a WIDS ambassador. Relly, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Katie, for the introduction. So today we have for you a panel on the importance of data fluency in the business world. We'll be talking to a group of amazing speakers from our team at SIA Partners. So we move to the next slide. Just to give a bit of a background, SIA Partners is a next-gen consulting firm focusing on a blend of AI and design capabilities that we provide to our clients. Our presence spans 18 countries, and we provide expertise across more than 30 sectors and services. So these include areas like business transformation, digital strategy, compliance, energy, and more. So for anyone who's interested in finding out a bit more or learning a bit more about our firm, we do have our SIA Partners website as well as a few other digital channels. Feel free to explore if you're interested. So now I'd like to get started with a quick introduction to our speakers for today. We have with us Kim Smith, Zoya Shirov, Tammy Smith-Gandulia, and Sophie Henry. Maybe Kim, we can start with you saying a few words about yourself and then we'll go around.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Smith, and I'm an associate partner with SIA Partners and also the market lead for Houston. I've been in energy and utilities as a native Houstonian, a proud Texan, for pretty much the entirety of my career, and excited to be here today and excited to be warm.
Great. So I'm Zoya Asherov. Hello, everyone. I'm a managing director at SIA Partners in New York City. My career, I've spent the majority of my career at a regulator, at a Wall Street regulator. So I have a lot of experience with catching bad guys on Wall Street and all things associated with it. So, you know, I think the Wolf of Wall Street and Boiler Room, that's been pretty much my life for a good chunk of my career. And also the diversity program lead at SIA Partners, which I'm very, very proud of and I'm passionate about. So I'm super happy to be here and speak with you all.
Hi, I'm Tammy Smith-Gandulia. I'm the market director for SIA in Denver, and I started my career as an engineer. So very technical, chemical and environmental engineering, moved into IT, which is when I really first became friends with data. And over the years, I kind of shifted over to the business side of things. But in between there, I had managed a department at a cancer center, also worked in education technology, and as a management consultant, worked in aerospace, telecom, healthcare, where I really focused a lot of effort in terms of data. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm happy to be here today. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie Henry. I am a design thinking project lead for SIA Partners out of the Montreal office. My background is also in engineering. I actually have a degree in computer science originally, but I quickly realized I was probably more interested in how technology is used than how it is made. And that led me to a career in user experience design, where I spent a lot of time actually helping people make sense of data and understand and interpret it. I do this through methods like design thinking or building empathy with end users, doing qualitative research that comes in complement to a lot of very often the quantitative data that our clients have. This is why I am very much looking forward to the conversation here today, because it's an interesting topic. I'm very honored to be in the company of all the other great women on this panel. I'm looking forward to it. And Relly, I'll pass it on to you to introduce yourself.
Great, thank you, Sophie. So my name is Relly. I am a senior consultant at SIA Partners. I am also going to be the moderator for today's panel. So my current work focuses mostly on digital transformation and automation, especially within the financial services sector. Like many of our other speakers, I also have a bit of a background in financial engineering as well as programming. I'm also currently a WIDS ambassador for the New York City region. So definitely very excited for our discussion today. And I've always been sort of interested in these areas of data science and the understanding of data. So with that, I will start with our main topic for today's panel, which is data fluency. So I think it's probably a relatively novel concept for most people. I think if I had to characterize data fluency, I would describe it as the ability to not only practice data analysis, but also to drive insights and build strategies using information that's being gathered. I think as a lot of organizations are looking to leverage, newer technologies, newer machine learning tools, there's really more of an emphasis on these sorts of data fluency skills. That said, it can also be kind of challenging in practice to really implement and sort of foster enterprise-wide understanding of data. With that in mind, I do want to direct my first question to Tammy and Sophie. Given your background in areas of, tech, IT, and computer science, what does data fluency mean to you, and why is it important?
So to me, I believe data fluency starts with the moment a piece of data becomes a piece of data, meaning how does it enter your system? How well is it defined? Is it standardized? How are you building that foundation? Because I believe that unless you start with that simple foundation and it's done well, you can't do things like even simple analytics. You can't do things like AI, machine learning. You can't make actionable decisions based on your data unless it's solid, unless it's trustworthy. And similar to learning a language, if you don't understand the simple vocabulary words, you're never going to be able to build on that to tell your great complex story. And I think data is very, very similar. And I mentioned in my intro that working in healthcare with data is, I'm very passionate about that. And I'll give an example from a client. I was working with the C-suite at a healthcare organization and that had about 8 hospitals in their fold and about 100 clinics. And during one of their board meetings, there were 4 different meetings for length of stay at the hospital. So without having a standardized definition, they couldn't act on that data at all. So in that case, I came in, I was hired to bring them to the next level of AI, past their standard business analytics. We couldn't do that. We had to scratch everything. We had to redevelop the foundation. We had to assess the infrastructure. We had to give the data a good, solid, trustworthy pathway to get to the point where you can make decisions against it. So in my mind, fluency, data fluency is that whole kind of life cycle from the moment it enters your systems to the point you can actually make a decision against it.
Tammy, the point you make here about the importance of the quality of the data and the definition of it, the appropriateness is also of it, is so important. And it's really, thank you for highlighting it. With a technology background, I understand the importance of that. I also know the limitations sometimes of data, or at least the fact that it's so hard to interpret that we kind of lose its power that comes out of like the fact that it exists and that we have been able to collect it. So for me, data fluency, really, I see it as the product of these two factors, the quality of your data and the ability of your workforce to actually use it. It's important that we consider both sides. It's the same as individual, we cannot reach our full potential if we don't really use both sides of our brain, the left and the right hemispheres. I think that as a organization, you can never get to the full potential of the organization if you don't have that ability to get the full benefit of the human data internal systems that you have in a company. And I see this as very important because as data scientists, you have a really critical role to play in building that bridge between the two sides, between data and humans. And I really encourage everyone who goes down the path of a career in data sciences to look into how am I going to help my colleagues, the people, the consumers of the data really understand it. Companies tend to have a little bit of a fear of how the data is going to be used, and they tend to not necessarily know or want to distribute it. But for data fluency to really be efficient, you really have to have that distribution of data. I was working with a client a few years ago, and they were a team of recruiters. They offered recruiting services to their customers. The direction, the directors wanted to introduce AI. They were persuaded that the recruiters didn't want the tool and that they didn't want data. They just wanted a recommendation for a candidate associated to a position. That was it. And actually, after talking with the recruiters, what we realized is that they wanted way more. They wanted, yes, a recommendation. They totally recognized that there was an advantage in working faster rather than going through tons of resumes. But they really wanted also to know, why is the system recommending this particular candidate? What's the reason behind? And what is the degree of confidence that the system has in that candidate's quality? And we were able to use that, present them that information, present it also at a higher level, which is for the total of the amount of positions that you have to fill. Here is the degree of confidence that we have as a system that you are going to be able to fill them all. And what that resulted in is first a much better adoption of the tool by the recruiters, but also a significant impact in the quality of the services that was delivered. So not just the speed, but the quality. And it was really, in the end, a huge benefit for the company to have distributed this information in an understandable, usable form to their workforce.
Yeah, thank you both for kind of elaborating on that. I definitely agree. I think even for people who aren't as familiar with the concept of data fluency or even with data science in general, there's still, I think, an awareness that these are sort of important skills to have and that there are a lot of applications across the board. So then I kind of want to turn and ask Zoya and Kim, respectively, for sort of your industries, where do you see data fluency bring the most value?
Go ahead, Zoya, do you want to start?
Thanks, Kim. Thank you, Riley. So I'll start with this. I mentioned in my intro that I spent a large chunk of my career at a Wall Street regulator, and I feel very, very passionate about the protection of America's investors, right? So all of us are really investors. If you have a 401k or any type of retirement plan, or if you plan to do so, as students coming into the workforce, we're all investors. And so I spent a large chunk of my career at a regulator making sure that folks weren't taking advantage of investors out there, our grandmothers, grandparents, ourselves, and everyone in between. So what does data have to do with this, right? So If you think about it, the American capital market system has a lot of activity. The regulator that I worked at, FINRA, it collects and analyzes over 1 billion instances of market activity, right? So market events. So think billion with a B. So there's a lot that goes on in the capital markets arena, a lot of activity. And so the regulator consumes that data and then finds ways to interpret the data, to connect the dots, to ensure that there is no manipulative activity that is going on out there, that folks are not taking advantage of other folks. And sadly, it happens quite frequently, right? So we've seen what's happened with GameStop, and you know, not insinuating that anything wrong went there. But the fact of the matter is that from a regulatory perspective, the consumption of data and the understanding how to utilize that data, what conclusions to derive from that data is critical for regulators to be able to police properly what's going on in the capital markets, to prevent things like the financial crisis of 2008, right? The fact of the matter is that the US capital markets or financial system really involves the global financial system. So if something happens here, something goes awry here, it really brings the global markets to its knees, as we all saw in 2008. So from a regulatory perspective, you know, this affects all of us, right? So if regulators don't know what they're doing as it pertains to data, and they don't know how to consume, interpret, and use that data, then it hurts all of us. So it's super critical and important. And then from a client perspective, right, from the flip side, banks, broker-dealers, any type of financial institution, they are consuming data and using that data. So transactions, any type of transactions, you know, the wires, all of the payments that, you know, our salaries coming in, us paying our mortgages, our rents, all of that type of transactional activity is monitored by banks and broker-dealers. And so they are responsible for finding ways to use that data, to analyze it, and to make sure they protect themselves and their customers from financial crimes, right? So from fraudsters taking over and using their institutions as a conduit to conduct nefarious activity. So it behooves all of the financial institutions to make sure that they're friends with data. They understand, you know, the intricacies and the integrity of the data and how to use it and connect the dots. It's super, super critical. So, and I'm excited that I now get to be on the street side, helping clients, you know, stay out of the grasp of the regulators and make sure they protect themselves and their customers. I'll hand it off to you, Kim.
Thank you, Zoya. And you know, for me and from Tammy and Sophie and Zoya, I'm going to build on what you're saying. So, you know, for our attendees, if you missed my introduction or you see in my bio, I'm from Houston, and I am a proud native Houstonian, a proud Texan. And there were some events that happened in the last couple of weeks that speak to not just being able to interpret and analyze and understand the data and making a recommendation and a decision, but actually the importance of acting on it and implementing those recommendations. And so I would say, you know, the importance of data fluency when you come to the industries that I represent, energy and utilities, it comes down to safety, and it's being able to use the data to be more proactive and understanding what's happening, and we see that right to where you know, kind of the post-mortem, if you will, of the winter storm that happened, that we were about 4.5 minutes from catastrophic failure and blackouts, but actually understanding from previous history, you know, acting on the information. So I would just want to point out that, the importance of data fluency is really in, of course, creating the model and interpreting it and gaining the insights and making the decisions, and all of that, it speeds up from data and having that fluency. But it's also true in that implementation of those actions as well, and using data to be able to accelerate that process. And we've been able to see that just even in the past year. From a year ago today, we realized that we're in these COVID times to actually, now being able to vaccinate 2 million people a day. So I would just emphasize, data fluency is absolutely critical in everything that we do. And it also, as well, is not only in those insights, that's the upfront, if you will, of the process, but even in accelerating the actions, and being able to see the tactical application of it.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
Roly.
Thank you, Zoya. Yeah, I think it's great to hear about sort of the overall push for data fluency, and also some of the real world examples of, how relevant it really can be. I think, as we're talking about professional experiences and sort of the importance of developing these sorts of skills, I am curious, sort of as women in your fields, especially in STEM and in finance, what has been maybe the most significant barrier that you faced throughout your career or otherwise? And maybe Kim and Tammy, you can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So would you like me to go first, Kim?
Sure, go ahead, Tammy.
So we'll probably have some similar themes here. Some such similar themes, especially for women in tech over the years. And I would say probably the most significant barrier is misperception. So early in my career, actually, when I was still in school, I had professors call out in front of the class that women had no business being engineers. So luckily times have changed a little bit, but 25 plus years ago, I was typically the only woman in the room in my classes, maybe one or two others, and we were called out as being different and unique. Not only in school, but in my career, I was commonly the only one woman in the room, the one that was looked to take notes for everybody. And I didn't stand up for myself well enough when I was young. I didn't have the right mentors and the right guides and the right advisors to point me in a different direction and to teach me about being self-aware and understanding my true value. And as I gained that confidence over the years, I mean, lo and behold, I became more and more successful in my career. So I'd say a big barrier is misperception, not only from others about you, but about yourself, really understanding the value that you're bringing to the table, being true to yourself and owning it. You worked hard to get to where you are, own it. Be curious, ask questions, push back. I wasn't encouraged to do so early in my career, but that's a mistake. Being curious, asking questions, truly understanding is so important. And it's navigating for yourself sometimes. So that was my significant barrier, and not understanding my true value, and being curious, just being curious. Those are things I didn't do early in my career, and I can't state it strongly enough that own it, own your accomplishments. You're smart, the value you're bringing to the table, and be confident in that. And it's only going to help you excel in your careers.
Thank you, Tammy. Absolutely second that. From a sense to where, I'm a chemical engineer by background and undergraduate degree. And I was fortunate to where there were, about 50-50 split of females in my engineering classes to males. But I think for me, if I think about it, the biggest barrier was probably just myself. And getting past imposter syndrome. I think, unfortunately, a lot of us as women, or if we're persons of color, or the intersection of a female and a person of color, we experience that. And I think what supports you getting beyond that is exactly what you said, Tammy, having those mentors and guides to help you, right? And those that look like you, but even more so importantly, those that don't. And so I think that is definitely what's been key for me. And then Exactly what you said, Tammy, owning it and having the confidence and taking those big risks, and knowing that you can get past it. Because I know for me, the acceleration in my career has been when I've taken those risks and taken a chance on myself, that I can do it. And also just surrounding myself with those great mentors and leaders. And I mean, also as well, you know, as we've been able to advance in our career, we're sitting in the driver's seat. And so being able to, you know, shepherd and mentor and guide others, but also too, it's just, you know, all of those things building on top of each other, and gaining the confidence. But it's taking those risks that I would say that's critical, and taking the leap, and knowing how to pick yourself up if you don't quite make it to the other side. But that's what I would stress.
Oh, and you know what, I actually like to add something. You're getting my wheels turning hearing you speak too. One barrier that unfortunately still perpetuates to this day is women tend not to be promoted as quickly as men, because they're especially younger in your career, when you're earlier in your career, because there's still a misperception that women are going to tap out of their career to have babies and have a family. And so I actually heard this early in my career, where a man was chosen for promotion over me, even though I was more well qualified. And I was simply told that, hey, so-and-so's a better bet on my part long term, because, you know, you're riskier. You might just, you know, go down this path and then leave the company. So you know, like Zoya, I'm involved with the DEIB group and at SIA Partners. I'm very passionate about that. And unfortunately, that's still something that perpetuates today. So just a quick little tangent there. Stand up for yourself when it comes to that too, and fight the misperceptions and help educate people along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Tammy. Really?
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. I mean, I definitely think just hearing about those experiences is really meaningful for myself as a woman, and I'm sure for others, members of our audience. So I appreciate you guys both for sharing that. And I think we have a bit of time for one more question. So I think before we sign off, I'd like to ask sort of what advice in general you would give to the next generation of female leaders, to the next generation of young women, you know, as it pertains to developing data fluency, data storytelling skills, or even kind of beyond that in terms of professional development. So maybe Zoya, Sophie, if you guys have anything to add to that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Relly. And before I go into the advice that I would give you all, I want to jump on what Tammy just mentioned. I actually experienced that myself firsthand. I was passed over a promotion. I was, to be fair, 8.5 months pregnant with my second child, and I have 3. So don't let anyone ever tell you that you cannot have babies and be successful in your career. Poster child right here. I have 3. And my director at the time, she was open with me, and she said, and I said to her, I said, Lisa, you encouraged me to apply for the job. And she's like, Zoya, I'm sorry, but you're going to be out of the office for 3 months. And I need someone to run the team. And I was flabbergasted that I was passed over a promotion because of a measly 3 months, right? Because I was out there having a baby. You know, I understood that, and this was a woman with kids. So that it was even worse, right? You expect that, you know, she's a mom herself. So, you know, probably many of us have been in these types of situations. And I thought it was just, you know, I wanted to share that story just to kind of jump on what Tammy mentioned. And don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't do something because, you know, you're expected to have babies and kids. And some of us may choose not to go down that path, and that's our choice, right? We have a right to choose what we want to do with our professional lives and with our personal lives. And the two do not have to, they're not mutually exclusive. And with that, I'll move over to the advice that I'd love to give you. And the advice that I'll give you is from my own personal experiences, right? So just like in the, you know, engineering and in technology, finance, and Wall Street in particular, heavily male-dominated industry, right? Think of the trading floors. Lots of guys sitting, using foul language, and a single female walking around is just something that's out of place, right? So I've faced a lot of that where you're dismissed simply because you're a young woman, and the credibility is not there yet, right? They dismiss you right off the bat because you're a young woman in a male-dominated world. So what I've found, and which are the 3 pieces of advice that I'll give you. The first thing is prepare, right? I cannot overestimate the importance of preparation, right? There's this famous quote that says, failing to prepare is preparing to fail, right? You're almost guaranteed to fail if you're not prepared. And what do I mean by prepare? Put in the hard work, right? In order to build that credibility, and you need to let your work speak for you, for what you, in terms of your credibility, and you need to practice articulation. A lot of us are very good at what we're doing, but we are simply not practiced enough to be able to articulate our thoughts, our ideas. And in a room full of, let's say, men, or even just very senior people, whether they're male or female, sometimes we're afraid to speak up, even if we have a profound idea that can change the course of where the meeting is going. So my advice, number 1, is to prepare. Work really, really hard. Make sure you get your facts straight, and practice in front of a mirror, on your phone, what you would say if you were presented with a particular question. Do little skits with others. Prepare an elevator speech about what you do. So that's number 1. Number 2, compete with yourself, right? And only with yourself. Don't compete with others. And this is just from personal experience. Once I realized, and I'm a very competitive person, my husband doesn't play air hockey with me anymore because he just can't handle me. Very competitive by nature. But once I realized that competing with myself and myself only yielded better results and made me happier in general as a human, and as a professional, and as a mom, it just changed the game for me. I now only compete with myself because I set thresholds for myself to make sure I am better today than I was yesterday. And sometimes you'll have bad days. It's okay. But if you compete with yourself, if you're not keeping up with the Joneses, it's just in terms of just your overall mental well-being and who you are as a human, it's just that much easier. So that's number 2. And number 3, and I feel really passionate about this, is send the elevator down, right? What do I mean by that? I don't know if you've heard of this term, but it started to kind of be used a little bit more frequently over the last maybe year or so. As we each ascend sort of the building that is our career, right? As you go up, and it doesn't matter if you're just 2 years out of school, or 5 years out of school, or 25 years out of school, you're gaining experience, and you're climbing, you're ascending the levels of your career. Don't forget to send that elevator back down. Reach out and help others. Right, so get involved in your company's intern program, even if you're just a year out of school. Help them out. Reach out and help others understand how to navigate difficult conversations with their bosses. And I am a firm believer in mentorship and sponsors. I've been very fortunate in my life to be where I am because people have taken me under their wing for whatever reason. They felt that I had something in me that they felt like they wanted to mentor me and coach me, and that's made a world of a difference in my career. And as I mentioned, I'm a mom of 3. That's kind of difficult to believe that you could do all of this and also become very successful in your career, but I attribute a lot of it to my mentors and my sponsors and my coaches. So I'll say, don't forget, even if you're a junior in your career, there's always someone that's more junior than you that you can help out. So remember, prepare, compete with yourself, and send the elevator down.
So yeah, I love that image of sending the elevator down. It's such a good, a good metaphor. And I agree, the role of mentorship is absolutely essential in my career as well. I also want to bounce off of your first recommendation, prepare, which is so important. It's, just do the work, and don't let anyone else take credit for it. And, you'll see it, you'll move forward. And my other main advice that I would give, and it echoes also a lot of what Tammy and Kim have said, is really embrace who you are. Because there's a certain tendency to, I think, we're trying to fit into a world that has been designed by people who are not necessarily like us. And as we do that, sometimes we tend to let some parts of us drop out. And I think it's really a pity, because the world needs you. The world needs you as women. The world needs you as young professionals. The world needs you as in your uniqueness. So embrace who you are, learn to use all of you, your left brain, your right brain, learn to use all of that, and learn how to tell stories. And a good place to start is learn to tell your story. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to see the keynote by Bhavna Bartolf yesterday, but that is basically what she said. She said, I encourage young people to learn how to connect the dots in the resume, tell the story of who they are beyond what's on the page. And it's a great place to start. Tell your story, tell stories in general, and use your creativity, tap in that as well. Don't let that drop off just because you want to be a professional, in data scientists.
We actually have we actually have a question in the chat. If
I'm very intrigued about this question, and it's a good one. So I'll give a quick response, and then I'd love for the other panelists to give their opinions as well. So you're absolutely right. This is still a very, very live and relevant stat that men will apply for jobs typically. I mean, we're generalizing here, that men will apply for jobs when just a portion of the description resonates with them. And women think that they have to check every single box on that job description before they can apply. I'd say no way. When we hire in consulting, the best hires, and I feel like I've over the years become really good at hiring. I hire consultants who end up being very, very successful. And one of the main qualities that I hire for is resourcefulness, self-sufficiency, and resourcefulness. Even if you can't check every box on a resume, if you have the confidence in yourself to be resourceful enough to go figure it out along the way, then do it. Throw your hat in the ring and go for it. Because even in the world of consulting, and the reason why I really hire for that is in a consulting situation, a client may say they need X, Y, and Z, and this is what they want you to deliver against. But then you get in the door and you find out more about the organization and realize they need something completely different. And so you have to change on a dime. You have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And every single job I've been on as a consultant, every single one, even if it's a similar industry, I always have to learn something new. I always have to, in the background, figure it out and be resourceful for myself. So say, have the confidence in being resourceful and self-sufficient, and go for those jobs where you can only check off a few of the bullets.
I completely agree, Tammy. As consultants, we deal in ambiguity on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis a lot of times. And so truly, being resourceful or knowing where you can go and find the information that's needed and pulling that together for recommendations, I think it's definitely absolutely it, right? And I think overall where industries are going, it's in that space. You'll hear a lot about collaborative and co-creating in this design thinking type world, right? And as we move in that space with innovation, because a lot of things in innovation, you're pulling on other translational, industries, right? So I think, absolutely, if you feel like you can do the job, you absolutely apply. So that I would second that, absolutely.
I think this is a great example of learning also how to tell your story. If you read a job description and you realize, oh, I don't have that expertise, just actually question that. Ask yourself that question. I don't, but how else would I do it? And what in my story, in my background, could I actually present that shows exactly what Tammy was saying, that I have the resourcefulness to actually be able to do it, even if I have not necessarily done it. And it's a statistic that I keep going back to, and it's very scary indeed that we are able to read a job description in completely different ways, depending on, you know, just a factor like gender. It's quite scary. But it's also a place where I would say it's a good example of sending the elevator back down, because once you are in a position where you can hire people, just help them eventually read those job descriptions a little bit differently and learn how to like show how they could eventually apply if they are not necessarily exactly the right profile. I like to say that I hire if you are interesting, not necessarily if you are purely interested, but interesting people are you know what I look for. And if you are able to tell me that you have similar skills, you've applied somewhere else, I'm all interested in your candidature.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent question, and you all provided really great takeaways from that. I definitely agree. I think for a lot of women too, it's often a bit of a self-perpetuating cycle where you kind of doubt yourself, or you underestimate yourself, or you know, you're scared of saying the wrong thing because then it would undermine a lot of the credibility that you've worked so hard to build. And it's just really, yeah, I think focusing on things like speaking up and building your own confidence and things like that really are crucial. So I think that is great. We have time a little bit for maybe one or two more questions. I don't know if we've gotten anything else submitted through the chat, but we can try to address as much as we can. Let's see.
Yes, we do have 2 minutes left, so we encourage any panelists or any attendees, excuse me, if you'd like to ask any more questions for our panelists, to do so now in the chat.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, I want to make another quick comment about sending the elevator down. Being a champion for others when you see the opportunity is huge. Don't pass those opportunities up. You will be so impactful. And this is not just for women. This is for men as well. You know, we'll give an example, a woman in a leadership position. If you champion a man, a young professional man, you're going to form what his idea of a female leader looks like. So that's just as important. We're talking about our women and allies. This is not exclusive of women. So if you see an opportunity to champion a man too along your career path, do so, because you are changing their perception of women and women leaders. And the more we do that, the less of an issue this will be moving forward.
And if I may add one more thing, since you know, the panel was women in data science, just as a parting piece of sort of my thought process is that, you know, embrace the differences that we have as women, right? So remember, biologically, it's the XX and the XY chromosome. So we are different. We are inherently built differently, and that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing, and you embrace that, right? Women have that additional sort of empathy that is innate for us, right? The hunter-gatherer versus the nurturer. You can embrace that. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something because you're a woman, but learn to appreciate those differences that, you know, that we have, and use it to your advantage. That's really, you know, that's really what I wanted to say as a parting thought, that embrace the differences when you can, but don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something because you're a woman.
Authenticity, being authentic and being yourself, absolutely.
Well, guys, that hits us at our 12 p.m. time. Thank you, everybody, for joining the session. And thank you to our amazing panelists. This has been a really interesting, eye-opening, and honestly inspiring session. Have a great lunch hour, guys. And I hope to see everyone back for our 1 p.m. afternoon session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.